Yaakov sends to Esav im Lovan Gartie. So Rashi cites Chazal. Gartie, the Gartie Taryag. The word Gartie, I sojourned, numerically is Taryag, 613. Klome im Lovan Harosha Gartie, the Taryag Mitzvah Shamarti. Although I sojourned, I was exposed to Lovan, I observed the 613 mitzvos. Lo mardi masav roim. Rashi says it's the gematria. He's quoting the Midrash. Numerically, Garti is 613. So I've always asked a question, which always bothered me. What do we have to speak about numerical value? Let's talk about the letters. The letters Garti is Taryag. Just rearrange the letters, it spells Taryag. We don't have to get into the numerical value. But Chazal say it's the gematria is Taryag. We could have said much more simply. The letters Garti is Taryag. So what do Chazal say the gematria is Taryag? That's the question. How does Chazal know when Yaakov said Garti, not only did I observe the 613 mitzvos, as we discussed yesterday, meaning I was not influenced. Not only did I observe the mitzvos, I detested whatever Lavan stood for. As a result of that, there wasn't even a consideration that I was anyway attracted to what he represented. As the first moment I came, I saw him as the representation of evil. Nothing has changed although I've been there 20 years. I still see him that an abominable, detestable state. How did Chazal know that? Taryag Mitzvah Shamarti. Now, what's the difference between rearranging the letters and the gematria? Gematria is the innate value. Garti, if I rearrange the letters, it's Garti. The two, one is able to do mitzvahs, one or two levels. You do the mitzvah, me going through the motion at a very relatively superficial level, that's Garti. I've sojourned. The letters Garti and Taryag are the same letters. If you look at me, I look like the same person as I originally was. But that's superficiality. It's gematria Taryag. Gematria is the innate value of the letters is Taryag. So it's not only in action. I appear to be Taryag, I am Taryag. I'm fully integrated with what? With the Taryag mitzvahs. That's the difference between rearranging the letters and gematria. That's what I said it for the first time last year. Yaakov is talking to Esav. He's sending this message to Esav. We say that Avram Avinu, based on the Pasuk, Hashem says to Yitzhak, why was Avram so special? Ekev Hasheshama Avram Bekobi. He listened to he did my voice, and he goes and delineates every aspect of the Torah Shebechsav, Torah Shebal Peh, even rabbinic laws he kept. So Avram Avinu kept Kol HaTorah Kula Kodem Shenitno. Avram observed the whole Torah in its entirety before it was given, even rabbinic laws. So Avram was that totality of spirituality, although he was only obligated in the Shem Mitzvah Bnei Noach and Mila, and circumcision. He had no other obligation, but nevertheless, he was fully developed spiritually, even on the non-obligatory level. That was Avram Avinu. When Yaakov is telling Lavan, Taryag Mitzvah Shamarti, this is before the Torah was given, that although I'm only obligated in the Shem Mitzvos and the Mila, circumcision, but I'm beyond that. I'm a fully developed spiritual being because I'm fully committed to Taryag. And that's the Kol Yaakov. When Yitzhak heard his son saying, Kum Na'ovi, please, Father, rise. Hashem allowed me to locate the the catch. That's why it came back so quickly, which those words never came out of Esav's mouth. That's when Yitzchak says, Akol kol Yaakov, but when he felt him, he touched him, he was hairy. He said, the voice is the voice of Yaakov, Hayidami de Esav. So over there, he actually confirmed, who is this being? His voice is Yaakov. How do you differentiate between an unintelligent species and a human being? The power of speech. Kol kol Yaakov, what's his essence? His essence is his kol. Although his physicality, he resembles an animal. He's hairy. But why was it so special? The kol kol Yaakov. You know, Yaakov is trying over here to impersonate his brother. So if you want to impersonate your brother and you don't want to be caught, so how do you speak like Yaakov? You should speak like Esav when you speak to your father. Your father asks you, why did you come back so quickly? You say, you know, I was lucky. Or whatever. But to use a term that Esav never uses that word. It never comes out of his mouth. How does Yaakov use that word? The answer is, for Yaakov to say anything, which would be the equivalent of what? Of denying God's involvement in his life, that's heretical. Yaakov can't get that answer. We say, but what about the brachos? If it's meant to be, I'm supposed to get the birthright, which is rightfully mine, by saying Hashem, I'll get in either case. That was his level of commitment to Hashem and Titin Emes Yaakov. That was his standard of Emes, despite the question. But how could you? You're revealing who you are. But Yaakov could not say, Hashem Hikrani. Hashem brought it to me. And to speak to his father, as Yaakov was supposed to speak to his father, in a refined manner. Kum no, please, father, rise. And he's saying this to Esav. He's saying to Esav, Taryag mitzvah shamat. What does Esav know about Taryag mitzvahs? As much as Esav was what he was, when he heard that his father gave out the bracha, this man is a murderer, he's an adulterer, he's a hunter, he's the most physical being in the world. But yet it says he wailed. When he heard his father gave away the bracha, he wailed. He didn't only sob, he wailed. Does my father only have one bracha? He has nothing left for me. Your father's an old, archaic, backward person out of touch with reality. That was Esav's reality, but he knew the bracha lies with his father. He knows that. And what was his father? His father was also a Taryag mitzvah Jew. Yitzchak kept also the 613 mitzvahs. Yaakov is the successor, is the continuum of Yitzchak. Being the continuum of Yitzchak, that means he's the heir apparent. As a result of that, you can't touch me. You could do nothing to me. Because I haven't been compromised in that area whatsoever. The call is still the call Yaakov. Yaakov says to his mother, Rivka, his mother informed that your father's about to give away the bracha. How did she know? So Rashi cites the Midrash through Ruach HaKodesh. Then Yaakov says, if my father should find out that I'm Yaakov, not Esav, he'll curse me rather than bless me. So she says to Yaakov, Ola kilos, if there's going to be a curse, it'll come upon me. I take responsibility, right? Those are the words of the pasuk. So there, the Targum Okula says, Ola kilos b'ni. What I'm telling you now is through Nevuah. Everything I'm telling you is prophecy. Prophetically, it was said to me exactly what you have to do. When he says, I'm concerned, I'm a smooth-skinned man, my brother is hairy, I'll be caught, he'll curse me rather than bless me. I take responsibility. So the Targum says, why? Because whatever I'm telling you, it's Nevuah. Everything, it's not me advising you, as a mother advising because you're my beloved son. This is a dictate from Hashem. So everything I'm telling you, so going with the putting on the skins, you appear to be Esav. And whatever this is all Hashem's dictate. Putting on the garment. What were those big dechamudos? Those special garments. Those were the garments that Esav had snatched from Nimrod. Those were those hunter's garments. So up to a point, yes, is again, to take what's right from the one I have a right to take. But to say anything which would be blasphemy or heretical that he couldn't do. You understand? Everybody always asks, Yaakov, these Jews, they're always so underhanded. Here he's going and he's deceiving his father. His father's blind. He's taking advantage. That's what he's doing. Factually, he's taking what's rightfully his. And if the only way he get what's rightfully his, it's not a problem. We had the Gemara says in Mitzvah, the times that you're permitted l'shanos esa emes. You could alter truth. Doesn't say you're permitted to lie. A Jew is never permitted to lie. But if the moment justifies saying not truth, that's not called lying. That's called altering the truth. Remember, we had the Gemara in El Metzias. If a person says to Ernie, I heard you know Shas, and Ernie truly knows that he's permitted to say it's not true. So for the sake of humility, you're permitted to alter the truth for Shalom Bayis. We have what Hashem, she originally said, Adoni Zokin. Hashem says to Avram, she said, Ani Zokati. She said she's too old. Because you're permitted, Lishanos, Mnei Shalom. For the sake of peace, you're permitted to alter the truth. That's called alteration of truth. That's not called lying. What Yaakov did over here was not lying. The only way he was able to get what was rightfully his was only to present himself as Esav. So physically he's Esav, but to say something which is blasphemy, to lie, to say it's not Hashem, that's not altering truth. That's a heretical statement. Therefore, he had to say Hashem. Hashem Hikriyani. Vayili Shov Chamor. He's through these agents, he's sending the message. I had Shor Chamor, an ox, a donkey, Tzon ve'eved shivcha, sheep, male and female slaves. V'agi eshcho lagid ladoni, and I'm sending you this message to find favor in your eyes. I mean, here's putting his finger in Esav's eye, but I'm doing this to find favor in your eyes. So over here, Chazal tells what's Shon Chamor. Abba Omeli mitala shamayim shmani oretz. The bracha was from the Pala Shamayim, from the dew of the heaven, and the lushness of the earth. Zuedo lo ben shmani oretz. Shon Chamor. Okay. Veshcha Adoni Lag Ladoni Lodia Shani Bo Elecho. I'm coming to tell you that I'm coming. Litzochem Beinecho. I mean, this Esav. I mean, Esav, Yaakov's the farthest thing from Esav's mind. When he sees Yaakov, he cringes because that's the degree of intolerance of Yaakov's existence. He says, by the way, I'm coming. You show up at a party unannounced at a person's 50th anniversary. He has his closest friends there, and his greatest enemy shows up. He says, I'm coming, you know why? Because I knew I wanted to wish you, because I knew if I wouldn't be here, something would be missing from your 50th anniversary. Understand? That's what Yaakov was telling Esau. I'm only doing this to find favor in your eyes. You're poking my eyes out. This is okay? But Rameh Simcha, before we get there, Rameh Simcha has a question. When he sent the gift to Esau, it says he sent camels. He had camels. So if he had camels, he should have said, V'hi shor v'chamor, u'gamalim. Right? He should mention, there's no mention of camels here. Why isn't there mention of camels? That's Rameh Simcha's question. And we know he had camels, because it says he sent so many male camels and female camels, and all the laws of conjugal obligations we learned from the ratio between the males and the females, the species that he sent to Esav. So he says something phenomenal. When Yaakov says, Taryag mitzvah shamati, v'lo masav aroyim, I observed and I wasn't affected. I wasn't compromised as much as an iota. Esav understood that the only way that Yaakov is vulnerable to Esav, only if there's a degree of compromise on his spirituality, if there's some degree of diminishment. He's not at that special level. A camel has one kosher sign. A camel chews its cud. And the Torah says, although it chews its cud, it's not a kosher species because it doesn't have split hooves. I had shor v'chamor. The discernment between a shor and a chamor. An ox has two signs. A chamor has neither. So the discernment between good and kosher, not kosher, it's obvious. It's like black and white. That's how clearly they're discernible. Gomel, there's a degree of intermixing. You have the non-kosher. You have the kosher sign, but it's not kosher. It appears, but it's not. So what he was saying to him, although I've been with Lavan all these years, I haven't been compromised as much as an iota. My original spiritual state is the same, but even greater, because despite the environment, I was able to maintain myself. That's the reason why there's no mention of the camel, and only species which either have the kosher signs or the species which has no kosher sign whatsoever. That's what Meir Simcha Vitvinsk. Very often people, you study in yeshiva with a certain person, then you meet him 35, 40 years later. And he's out there in the world. He's still an observant Jew. From what you remember, he's not the same person. Other people say, he's such a Talmud Chacham. He has more knowledge than the average person. He can say a shir, this and that. But you, being a student with him in yeshiva, going back 30, 40 years ago, you understand he's not the same person. Due to his being out there in the world and being exposed to many things, and on a certain subtle level, there's a certain compromise of Torah values. The average person can't tell this. But you that you know him from way back and understand what he was and he's no longer, you understand there's been some kind of diminishment in his original status. So that's the gomel. He appears to be the same, but he doesn't have split hooves. It's shor v'chamor. Nothing has changed in all these years. He's away 36 years. He hasn't seen him. Or 30, at this point, 34 years, 35 years. Okay. Let's say Esav wouldn't know this. And Esav would attack Yaakov. Esav will be destroyed. What we see later, when Esav is about to approach him, it says, Vayiro. It says he was fearful. So Rashi over there says he was very fearful. He was afraid he'd be killed. And he was afraid he would kill Esav. So we asked, to be killed, we understand. What's there to be afraid of? Because maybe he's been diminished somehow, and therefore he'll be vulnerable. But if he'll kill Esav, why is he afraid? Why is he concerned? So that's what we explained. Because if he kills Esav, he's going to be diminished. That's going to be, therefore, the Klal Yisrael is not going to be the same. Therefore, he's coming to explain, I want to explain you who I am. Don't even attempt to attack me, because if you do, you're going to be destroyed. And Yaakov doesn't want to kill Esav. Not because he doesn't want Esav to be destroyed, because if he's involved, the only one who could kill Esav is Yaakov. He doesn't want to do that, because if he does that, he's compromised. Therefore, he's trying to explain to him in advance, I want to explain you who I am. I'm Gartie at every level of Taryag. And we have this discernment, chamor, shor v'chamor. I've been compromised as much as an iota. Therefore, I'm all telling you, for you to appreciate what this is. Because the fact is, I don't want to kill you. But Esav doesn't understand that what it means Yaakov doesn't want to be compromised. But he understands, I'm telling you all this, and this is in your best interest. Why did he need angels? Why weren't mortals enough? Yaakov could have said, see, explains, he gives two explanations. When let's say he'd send mortals. What do you think Esav? And Esav's not happy with what they have to say. He kills them. And before Yaakov realizes who's on his doorstep, Esav with his 400 men. If they're angels, they're able to go and come back immediately. They have a reading on where he's at, and Yaakov was able to prepare sufficiently for this confrontation, if there's going to be a confrontation. That's why they had to be angels. If they mortals, he would kill them. That was Yaakov's concern. If he kills them, how does Yaakov know that Esav's right at his doorstep? He doesn't. That's why angels, he's not able to kill them, the agents. Secondly, he says, Esav's level of guile was, as we'll discuss later, Yaakov was concerned that as much as Yaakov knows who Esav is, when he says, Hatzleini nomi yarochim yad Esav, save me from the hand of my brother Esav. Esav had the power of guile that although Yaakov knew what Esav represented, and he wants to kill him, and he cannot tolerate him, he's able to give a sense of feeling that Esav is the most intimate friend of his. And as a result of that, Yaakov will put down his guard. And if he does that, his life is over. So that's when he said, Hatzleino biyarochim yad Esav. You couldn't read, Yitzchak couldn't read Esav. It's impossible to read the man. The only one who could read his true intention, only if they were angels. Mortals couldn't give a reading on this. The whole purpose is you're sending them to give Yaakov a reading of what the state of affairs are. Mortals can't do it. The only one who could read the true nature of what this man is only Malachim, only if they're spiritual angels. This is the Orach Chaim HaKodesh, the way he explains it. You know, Hitler, Yamach Shemo V'Zichro, when he had the pact with Russia, and they were going to divide, Sudetenland, Poland, that whole deal over there. Hitler, Yamach Shemo V'Zichro, I mean, of course, he breached the agreement. And that's when Russia and Germany, they went to war against one another. The man, outwardly, he was the most, even Stalin, Yamach Shemo V'Zichro. He and Stalin, they were going to devour the world. But Stalin didn't realize Hitler was going to devour him. That was his intention. And take over everything, all Europe, including Russia. Even Stalin couldn't read Hitler. That because Hitler is what is Amalek. And that's the power of Amalek. The power of deception, that you can't even read them. Vayeshuva Malochim el Yaakov leimor. The Malochim came back and they said, Boru Elochicha el Esav. We've come to your brother, to Esav, which seems to be superfluous. We came to your brother. He only has one brother, Esav. Gam Holech, and in addition, meaning firstly, he's still the same Esav. In addition, Gam Holech l'kroscha v'arba me'os ishimo. And he's coming with 400 men against you. And this whole discussion in Medrash, is it 400 men? Or each one of these people was like a general, and they had men, like platoons of soldiers, coming against Yaakov. I mean, there were thousands and thousands of people, soldiers, enemy, that were coming to destroy Yaakov. So it wasn't only 400 people. These people were literally heads of armies coming to destroy Yaakov. Let's see Rashi. Bo Elochino Elchicha Leisov, Shoyiso Me'ochihu. You refer to him as your brother. Avlu Noye Imcho Kesav Arosho. Odenu B'Sinoso. He's the same old Esav. The hate hasn't waned whatsoever. Odenu B'Sinoso. He still has that intensity hate for you. So how does Yaakov respond? Vayira Yaakov Ma'od. He was very frightened. He was frightened. What's Ma'od? Vayetzlo, and he was pained. What's he pained? Vayira, he's afraid he would be killed. But what was the pain? The pain was if he has to kill Esav, he's pained, he will be compromised. Take a look at Rashi. Vayira Yetzer, Vayira Shema Yehorig. He was afraid that he'd be killed. Vayetzelo, but he was pained, Im Yaro Kuas Acherim, if he'd have to kill the others. That's what he was pained, because that would be a compromise in himself. We find by Avram, when he destroyed the four kings, what was part of his problem? What was part of his concern? His concern was that maybe among those who he killed, there were tzaddikim, people who didn't deserve to be killed. That's not the case here, right? Avram was concerned that maybe his merits were depleted because maybe he had killed some of these people he shouldn't have killed. The people who come with Esav, there's no question in his mind what they are, what they represent. If that's the case, what's the Yetzer? Shema Yarog Acherim. The Acherim that he's killing here are not tzaddikim. So as we said, because killing is a compromise of himself, and he's no longer at a level where he should be. Therefore, he falls short of being that influence that he has to be for his family to take them forward, ultimately to Egypt and ultimately for Kabbalah Satorah.
It sounds, this idea.
He divides the people that were with him. He divided everything into two camps. What was the concept of dividing the two camps? There's a lengthy Ramban here. This has to do with myself as Simon that this is the guarantee, the eternity of the Jewish people. The times where the Jews were nearly annihilated, right? The Holocaust. But the Holocaust did not affect, let's say, the Middle East or North Africa or the Western Hemisphere. Didn't. There will always be a remnant of Jewish people because there will never be a time that Hashem will allow the enemy to have full control to annihilate us, although that's their intention. If the Esav should come to one of the camps and smite it, the other camp, which remains, will be flater. That'll be what? That'll be the remnant. Now, the Ramban writes that the whole story of Esav and Yaakov, how we dealt with him, the gift, the prayer, everything else, it was bribery, the gift. You should study it and know it well, because this is the way you deal with Esav. When you have to deal with the Gentile, who's a representation of Edom, because we're in the Edomite exile, you should study this well. And he says, what do you have to? You have to bribe them. Esav is very vulnerable to bribery. You bribe him, you'll be able to actually annul decrees, many things. That's the Ramban. There's a famous story, when Begin came to the Camp David Accords. He went to Rav Shach before he came to America. And Rav Shach said to him, before you meet with Carter, study the portion of Esav and Yaakov very well. Because through that, you'll have maybe an idea exactly how to deal with Carter. That's what Rav Shach, and he told study the Ramban. Study the Ramban to get all the nuances of what went on over here. Okay, that's what he advised them. Because the Ramban says here, this is forecasting the future, how to deal with Edom, with Esav. Okay, that's that story. It was a known story that when the Jews were in Kobe, Japan, we went from Kobe, we went to China. So there was a whole question over there about bribing. Japan was part of the Axis power with Germany. And there was a whole question. Germany wanted in the worst way that the Japanese should send all the Jews that were there to Poland and Germany to be killed in the concentration camps. And they didn't send them. So the question was, and there were three great rabbis who went to meet with this Japanese, whatever they called him, commander. And the question is, how do you deal with him? Should they bribe him? Because the Ramban writes that when you're in a situation where there's a decree or we're in danger, the way you deal with the enemy, you bribe him. So one of the people who were there was the Amshnav Rebbe. Amshnav Rebbe was a great tzaddik, a holy tzaddik. And another person was Rebbe Lezer Yudel Finkel, was the Mir Rosh Yeshiva, and there was a third person there. And they said, maybe we should bribe him. So the Amshnav Rebbe said, it's not going to work. Why? Because this whole approach and this tact to deal with the enemy, that's only if it's Esav. Esav is susceptible to bribery. The Japanese are not from Esav. The Orientals are not Esav. You can't deal with them that way. And the whole thing could actually backfire. So they went and they met with him. And he asked him a question. Why did the Nazis hate you? Okay. So he said the reason why they hate us is because we're Semites. Yeah, that's the reason why. That's why they hate us. So when they heard that, the Orientals, they also identify with that, meaning we have something in common, which they don't have. Once he said that diffused the whole thing, and they let them go. They let them go to China. This is the story. That's when they went from Kobe to China, because originally what they wanted they should do is they should go travel on the ocean. They were supposed to go, and when they're on the ocean, they're going to sink the ships with the Jews on them. All the people going from Kobe to China. It never happened. There's a whole background on what happened over there.